Somewhere beneath the cobblestone streets of medieval Europe, something was buried. Not treasure, not relics. People, not just any people. Intellectuals, priests, noblemen, anyone whose ideas threatened those in power. They were taken in the night. No trial, no farewell, no witnesses. And for centuries, the world never knew what happened to them. You've walked past buildings like this. Beautiful, ancient, carved with the insignia of kings and bishops. But underneath those foundations, beneath those perfectly placed stones, were chambers that swallowed human beings whole. We are not talking about dungeons in legend or fiction. We are talking about a real, functioning, terrifying system, a secret prison network, buried so deep that historians didn't uncover it until centuries after the screaming stopped. Imagine being dragged from your home in the middle of the night. No explanation, no charges. The guards don't speak. The door slams. And then, darkness. Complete, absolute, suffocating darkness. No windows, no sound, but the dripping of stone walls and the distant echo of others suffering the same fate. You were erased, and the people who did it made absolutely sure the world would never find out. Until now. The year is the late Middle Ages. Europe is not the romantic landscape of fairy tales. It is a continent fractured by religious war, political hunger, and a paranoid obsession with control. The Holy Roman Empire, the Papal States, and dozens of competing monarchies all share one unspoken understanding. Power is fragile, and fragile power must be protected at all costs. The forbidden method? Disappearance. Not execution. That creates martyrs. Not exile. That creates enemies who can return. No, the preferred tool of the powerful was erasure. Silent, total, buried, beneath fortresses, beneath cathedrals, beneath the very cities where citizens lived and prayed and worked. A hidden infrastructure was constructed. Corridors that don't appear on any official map. Cells carved into bedrock. Ventilation so minimal that survival past a few years was unlikely. These were not holding cells. These were designed to make people cease to exist. Physically, historically, spiritually. The prisoners who entered these vaults were given no names in the official records. They were listed in code, referred to only by numbers, or simply omitted entirely. Entire human lives reduced to silence. Scribes and administrators were ordered to destroy relevant documentation. Anyone who spoke too freely about what lay beneath often found themselves descending into the very darkness they described. But here is what no one expected. The prisoners fought back, not with weapons, but with words carved into stone walls that centuries later would expose everything. When historians first began excavating the sealed underground chambers beneath certain European fortresses in the 19th and early 20th centuries, they expected to find storage rooms, wine cellars, perhaps old weaponry. What they found shattered them. The cells were no wider than a single man lying down. The ceilings were intentionally too low to stand. Iron rings bolted into the walls at neck height. Floors still stained. And on the walls, scratched with fingernails, with fragments of stone, with whatever desperate tool a vanishing person could find. Names, dates, prayers, accusations. One inscription, found in a chamber beneath a northern European fortress, and later translated, read simply, "I was a teacher. I taught truth. For this, I am buried alive." There was no signature. There didn't need to be. Researchers cross-referencing church records, private aristocratic diaries, and intercepted diplomatic correspondence began assembling a picture so dark it was almost unimaginable. For over 3 centuries, an estimated thousands of individuals, many of them academics, religious reformers, political rivals, and even women accused of independent thought, were committed to these underground labyrinths and never officially acknowledged. The system wasn't improvised. It was structured. It had administrators. It had funding, routed through legitimate church and state accounts, disguised as construction towns, food stores, or military supply costs. And here is the moment that redefines everything. Some of the most powerful church officials and kings who publicly condemned torture and unjust imprisonment were the same individuals whose private seals authenticated the orders sending people into between the darkness. The faces of mercy were the architects of the abyss. Records also reveal a detail so chilling it almost defies comprehension. Certain prisoners were kept alive for decades, not out of compassion, but because the regime needed living proof that they could make someone vanish without consequence. A breathing warning, a human example of absolute power. When the first irrefutable evidence emerged, the inscriptions, the hidden administrative ledgers, the architectural evidence of purpose-built suffering, Europe fractured under the weight of what it had done. Governments denied. Churches issued vague statements of regret that stopped well short of admission, and many of the families who descended from the original architects of this system, they had long since moved into positions of respectability, of influence, of authority. No trial took place. No mass reckoning occurred. History, as it so often does, absorbed the horror and moved forward. Some of the surviving documentation was handed over to historians only under pressure, decades after discovery. Other records remain sealed in private collections and institutional archives that have never been independently reviewed. The victims were never given names in official memory. No monument stands above the places where they vanished. The cities that were built over their suffering continue to function, continue to be photographed by tourists, continue to be celebrated for their ancient beauty. And yet, this history matters enormously today, because the mechanisms that enabled it are not ancient. They are disturbingly familiar. Secret detention, the weaponization of silence, the destruction of inconvenient records, the use of bureaucratic language to sanitize atrocity. We see shadows of this playbook in the 20th century. We see it still, in nations where political enemies disappear, and official explanations are offered with a straight face. The underground prison of medieval Europe was not a relic. It was a blueprint. And the terrifying truth is that the blueprint has been referenced again and again, by different hands, in different languages, beneath different flags. The people who were buried beneath those stones were not forgotten because they were unimportant. They were forgotten because remembering them was inconvenient for power. What does a prison beneath the earth, sealed for centuries, teach us? It teaches us that silence is never neutral, that when the powerful erase, they do not erase the truth, they only bury it. And buried things have a way of surfacing. It teaches us that the most dangerous instruments of oppression are not the ones we can see. They are the ones hidden in plain sight, in bureaucratic language, in sealed archives, in the gap between what leaders say in the light and what they authorize in the dark. Every name scratched into that stone by a forgotten prisoner was an act of defiance, a refusal to be completely erased, a message thrown forward through centuries of silence, finally landing in our hands. We are the ones who received those messages, and with that receipt comes responsibility. History does not ask us to fix the past. It asks us to understand it, fully, unflinchingly, without the comfort of distance. Because the moment we say, that could never happen now, is precisely the moment we stop guarding against it. If this dark history moved you, if you felt something shift in your understanding of what power is capable of, share that feeling. Leave your thoughts below. The conversation that follows a video like this one is just as important as the video itself. And if you believe this kind of buried truth deserves to be heard, subscribing ensures you're there when the next chapter of forgotten history is uncovered, the stones remembered. Now, so do we.